This time on Captain Chaos's Laboratory, we're going to show you how to convert your lighting if your incandescents burn out and you want LED. So this is the Mr. Christmas, I think it's the Grand Carousel. It doesn't matter, it's similar on all of them. But this one has 4 incandescent lights. Here's one that's been pulled out. And we're going to replace them with LED. I showed quickly many videos ago, and I'm talking probably 100, on how to do it. So we're going to do a little bit more in-depth one with some LEDs, resistors, and then we're going to show you that this unit is an AC unit, and they also make one that's a DC unit, and I'll show you the LEDs will work fine on both. So first thing you got to do is get access to this part. So you have to take the dome off. You don't really have to take this out. This is just my parts one that I have lying around for pieces. In case somebody needs a broken part replaced, I have pieces. But you got to remove the wires or disconnect the wire, at least one wire, right immediately from the center. I just recommend cutting them both. Makes it way easier in the long run. And you will need a soldering pen or a soldering gun, just so you're aware. I would not recommend twisting the wires, and you can if you have to. But so once you have access to the top, you need to get the incandescent bulb out. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy. Hopefully you don't break it. The black is pressed in. I would recommend not taking these out, because if you tear them, then you have a problem. So get a pair of small pliers, something with some teeth. Carefully, first remove the glue, because I put these glue caps on top of them. Then straighten your wires, and then carefully grab the bulb, and with a little bit of pressure, just start pulling it through. Now it'll slip a few times, but the bulb is slowly coming out. While it's coming out, I'm going to push the wires through, make it a little less stress. And then, once that happens, you can then just pull it out with your fingers. So, these are 3mm LEDs, which are about the same size as the OEM bulbs. One of the reasons we're doing this is when these bulbs burn out, they're really hard to find. Now all these bulbs work, but what I want to do is compare the brightness. So I want to make sure we have some stripped wire. So what you're going to need is 4 LEDs of your color of choice. These are warm white. 4 resistors and some heat shrink cut to cover one leg, so these two don't touch each other when you shove them back through the black. You don't want those to short out. You can use the OEM wire, or you can get some LED wire and solder them up. And you need soldering iron, some snips possibly like this, or like this to strip the wire, and these also have the cutters, but these are just angle cutters. And if you don't have a set like this where it's got the pliers on the end, to pull the lights out, you can use needle nose. You can also, technically, take a toothpick and shove it through from the back to get the light to pop out. I don't like doing that unless I have to, because what's happening is when you shove the toothpick in there, this hole is really tight, so now you're putting pressure, which is going to pinch the wires, so you risk still breaking the bulb. If your bulb's broke, it doesn't matter. But if your bulb isn't broke and you don't want little shards of glass, because these are glass incandescents, carefully pull it out with pliers. Light pressure until you can get it to move. You can wiggle it to help break it free from the rubber. Alright, so just to show you that, and I recommend testing your LEDs. You can use an LED tester, or you can make one. I have both, OEM store one, which I don't know where it disappeared to, and then I have the one that I made. So you can see the light works. And I already tested all 4 because sometimes you get bad batches from overseas. The long lead is hot, the short lead is not, or negative. Now, on a DC house, that's important. On an AC house, it doesn't technically matter. So, this came out of an AC version. And I'm going to hook AC to both of these, this and this, as well as DC, and show you that the light works the same. So, the heat shrink just slides over. You can heat it, but the soldering iron is going to heat it for me. And we're going to stick the light up inside. Like that. Now this light will hang down just a hair farther than the OEM light, and I'm not talking a lot. So here's the original, the new, and here's the original. And you can tell you're talking maybe a 1/16 of an inch. And it's very, very, very minute. Somebody coming over to your house to look at your display or what have you probably isn't going to notice the difference. Now, you have 2 small leads sticking up, one shorter than the other, of course, because the negative is shorter than the positive. There's still enough there to solder. Now, I'm not going to put a dab of glue on this like the OEM. I'm going to take the leads and I'm going to fold one in one direction. And then I'm going to take the short one and I'm going to fold it in the other direction. Kind of like you do with a cotter pin, just to hold it in place. So this allows me to adjust how I want it. I can spin the rubber so I can get the leads where I want them. But this also keeps them away from each other. Then, if I wanted to, once I'm done, I could take the hot glue and put a dab of it right there, and we're good to go. So, my soldering iron is up to temperature. The 4 resistors that we're using are 220 ohm resistors. So, you can make the lights a little dimmer if you go to 300 ohm or 250. I wouldn't go above 200 ohms because you're going to be driving the lights at their maximum, the LEDs, at their maximum power. And LEDs will last a lot longer if you drive them at the lower or middle range of their power arc. These are designed to run right around 2 to 2.3 volts. These are low powered LEDs. So if I use the resistor and increase the amperage through them and closer to that 20 milliamp, they'll be brighter, but they're going to last much shorter. So this will lower it down to right around 12 milliamps. So about half, just under, or just under half power, which you'll see is plenty bright. I'm going to show you the 2 side by side. So once you get it through, like I said, the heat shrink's not terribly important. The heat, you can, it's not a problem. Because the heat from this soldering iron, when I stick it on here, it's going to melt that right to that post. You won't be able to see it, of course, because it's inside the black grommet, but trust me, it works 99% of the time. There's always that 1% where things go wrong. So, because this is going in an AC house, these lights are actually going to be used. It doesn't matter what side I put them on. But because the negative is so much shorter, I'm going to put it on the negative to give me a little bit more meat to solder onto. So first I'm going to solder the negative, which is the short lead, to get me, it's called tinning. Now I'm going to tin this one. Now you don't have to keep your resistor leads as long as this. You can trim them and shorten them. I'm just using the whole thing so you can see. There we go. When you solder, if you watch the solder will change colors when it cools. It goes from like a really shiny to a slightly duller sheen to let you know that you've soldered it on. Turn off the soldering iron because I'm only going to do one just to give you an example. And then, well, just use this one, it's already out. So, we're going to do 6 volts, AC and DC. Now both my machines are off camera and the AC one doesn't have a digital display. So we're going to use the voltmeter. The squiggly line on the voltmeter is AC. So the machine is off. Let's turn the machine on. So it's a little high, 6.7, because most of the Mr. Christmas is closer to 6. So we'll drop it down to 6.26, 6.25, give or take. And I'll also link to a video where you can make one of these. That's how I learned. So these are the alligator connectors for the AC machine. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to go kill a few lights here, make it slightly easier to see. And we'll turn off this one. And so there's the 6-volt AC light in low light. And these get warm. They don't get hot, they just get warm. So now AC doesn't care which side is connected to which. So let's see if I can connect. Yeah. I'm going to try and connect them both together, but I don't think the... Hold on. Give me 1 second here. I lost my voltage because I pulled the connection out. There we go. It's supposed to be a streamer-line video for you, but my leads on my AC machine are really short. I should probably extend those. So I'm going to solder up another one real quick so I can just plug it into the leads. I'm only using the pliers to elevate this so I don't melt it to my bench. There we go. So, back to the AC. We'll hook this one down on the negative and this one on the positive. Guess I gotta quit pulling that. There we go. And click. You can see they work. So that's AC. So I'll turn the AC generator off. I got my DC on. Same thing. We'll flip that to DC. I'm going to plug the leads into my DC. So that's negative. That's positive. So 6.3. So now this is more important if it's DC because, so there's the light, shield it from the big light above. Because if I do this, if I put the negative and then hit the positive here, nothing happens. A light emitting diode is a diode, which is a door. It can only flow in one direction. So if it's in the wrong direction, it doesn't work. So this works on an AC or DC house, just like this light will work on AC or DC. Incandescent bulbs don't really care as much as people think when it comes to these animated houses. Now your big ones that you know, light up your house are a little bit more. So I'm going to show you them both side by side because my DC leads are longer. I'm going to connect both of them together like so. So that way you can see the comparison of the light of a warm LED to a incandescent bulb. The incandescent bulb is slightly more orange. You can technically replace this with a golden white. If you want it brighter, or cold white. If you're doing maybe a Halloween thing, change them to red or purple. So there's the two together. Let's kill the light. See, the LED is still slightly brighter. So if you wanted it dimmer, you could jump it to 250 ohm or actually in the camera it's hard to tell, but the halo you can see is more yellowish than this, which is more white. So, and just so you know, the LED draws 1/100th of an amp with a 220 ohm resistor. This at 6 volts DC and AC draws 5 times as much. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you got 4 of them in here, yeah, it's 0.2 amps. Where if you have 4 of the LEDs in here, it's negligible. So, and of course the LEDs will last longer, they will be cooler, they will draw less power from the circuit board, and you can adjust the color by changing out the LED. Incandescent bulbs that are colored are usually just have a paint on them, and that paint, when it gets hot, well, it chips off. If you've ever had any colored Christmas lights or night lights, the paint, when they get older, flakes off. So I mean, you can paint these, but you'll have the same problem. So that's what it would look like with a 220 ohm resistor, and that's about as high as I would go. It's slightly brighter. It is a different color temperature. It's a little colder. It's still classified as a warm white, and it will illuminate fine inside here. So that thing's nice and toasty. So now let's go back to this guy, and so you can see how bright it is off of the reflection of the pieces. We'll show you the reflection of this factory lighting now. So, get an idea. You can see how bright the horse is. You can see when I move them, you can see the color on the front shadow because it's behind, and then the white in the back. So now, I'll move it over to the incandescent. Now again, you can make the light dimmer by changing the resistance, and you can also get a different color temperature. And then that one, you can see, hopefully, you don't see the horses as much, it's not as pronounced. The camera does swamp out, so the white was a lot whiter than it would look in your eye, because the camera doesn't adjust as good for the white balance in low light. So, but an idea, lead fell off. It gives you an idea of the difference. Now, if you want to make it dimmer, you can run a 250 ohm, maybe 300 at the most. At that point, you're going to not only get a slightly dimmer color, you're going to get a very dim LED. So I'm going to link below a link to some LEDs. Most LEDs are kits, but I'll see if I can find a just warm white package or some kits. Resistors usually come in multi-packs, standard resistors. Sometimes you can find half a dozen or a dozen of the same value resistors on like eBay, but usually a multi-pack is cheaper, and that gives you a little bit to play with. If you don't have a 6-volt power supply like I do, you can use the head, the plug that goes in the side as a barrel, and put one lead on the inside and one on the outside. Now remember, do not put the LED in there, it'll just pop the LED. You need to have a resistor. As well as you can use two 3-volt lithium like watch batteries. The big flat discs are about the size of a quarter. You can stack 2 of them on top of each other. There's your 6 volts. So AC or DC, it doesn't matter too much on this piece or any of the carousels from any of the manufacturers, whether it be Limax, Department 56, or Mr. Christmas. Power's power. How you make the light work can vary, but on these pieces, whether it's 6 volts AC, DC, 9 volts, 12 volts, 4.5 volts, 3 volts, 2 volts, it doesn't matter if it's AC or DC. LEDs don't really care too much when they have the resistor. Now, if you are flicker sensitive, especially at Christmas time, everybody has LED Christmas lights, and some people can see it and some people can't. When an LED is on AC, that light is flickering on and off 60 times a second. That's because they can't work when the polarity reverses. So that light's flashing really fast. Most people can't see it. I can. I'm one of those people that can. And on Christmas lights, it drives me absolutely insane. On these little houses, it's not that bad. And it's probably the intensity of the light or the quantity of the light in being the difference. For those who don't understand what I'm talking about, if you have your lights out still, you haven't put them up, or you just have them where they're accessible, plug them in, and then take your hand and wave your hand in front of your face while staring at the lights, and you'll see the flicker. It's the same thing when you record or watch a movie and it's got flashing lights, like especially if you ever watch Cops, and the lights flash, that you don't see the light flash, but you see the reflection on the stuff around the car, and that's because the flashing rate of the light doesn't match the camera. So when you're doing this with your hand, you're breaking up the flashing rate of the lights and it's more visible. Same principle as a strobe light when you're walking through like a haunted house and it's strobing. It looks like you're moving in slow motion. Same thing. So, but on these little houses, the AC, I don't see the flicker. It's not enough light. But if I had, say, 100 of them, I'd see the flicker. So, but I wouldn't worry about it. Most people can't, and most people aren't staring directly at the light. When this is spinning around, you're looking at it from the side going, that's really cool. You're not staring at it intensely. So, anyway, but that's basically it. That's how you do an LED conversion on incandescent houses like the Mr. Christmas ones. When these itty-bitty glass bulbs break or burn out and you can't find them because they are really hard to find, which is why on a lot of houses when I get them and they have burned out bulbs, if I have any like this from a parts house that I can replace, I will. If I don't, because it's a different size, because they do come in sizes, I will ask the person if they want an LED conversion, and I can do my best to match up to the closest color, or I can ask them if they want a specific color, like pink or red or blue, or one of the LEDs that are available. Or if they wanted to change colors where it's like a disco and it's RGB and it just randomly goes through colors. I've done that once. But that was also a Halloween piece that the factory went red, green, blue, whereas the replacement goes red, green, blue, yellow, purple, cayenne, teal. Yeah, it goes through like 12 or 13 different combinations. So, but anyhow, thank you for watching. Hopefully it was somewhat educational and helps you in the future if you need to change your lights over from incandescent to LED, whether it's because they broke or you just can't replace them, or you just want to make the color, temperature, color range different than original. So it is your piece. Modify it as necessary. Until the next one.